Hi everyone, this is Emmanuel, and in the next few minutes I will be presenting my work on information organization on Twitter. My big question is there any discernible organization of information going on Twitter? And my response, which also forms my thesis, is that there is indeed organization going on in Twitter, and there are many issues that also trail this peculiar organizational style. Just looking at this is a Twitterverse, a typical cloud of hashtags. This is what was going on in 2014 in the last congressional election, and you can see different names here: Tea Party, Iowa Caucus, CNN Debate, Ron Paul, Rick Santorum, Governor Perry, Michelle Bachmann, Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney, and a smaller bubble there, Barack Obama. This kind of shows firsthand the amount of clout that these people wielded in shaping opinion in the run-up to that election. We will come back to this shortly. But that kind of introduces us to what goes on in Twitter in terms of information organization and information representation and organization, which revolves around two major things: tweets and hashtags. Tweets are short streams of messages of 140 characters maximum length that are arranged chronologically and serve to us users in a reverse chronological order. That's why we can easily pick them out by day and by time. Now, hashtags, on the other hand, take this organization to a much higher level. They have the lifespan, the times when they're created by users, they get adopted by the Twitter community, they trend for some time, and eventually they get abandoned when they're progressively used less and less until they fizzle out. But typically they come prefixed with a hash sign followed by a string of characters which serve as keywords or topic markers. And these are attached to tweets in order to describe the tweet and to identify the tweet when it is being searched for. So these are typical things that go along with Web 2.0, user-generated metadata created spontaneously by users or taken from the taxonomies of relationships acquired online. And they are created to enhance topical access or to add humor to tweets, like when a group of participants at the Geneva conference decided to tweet, "Geneva is hot and has no air conditioning." So, but looking at the bigger picture, we see that Twitter uses hashtags to leverage the collective wisdom of the crowds in representing information, aggregating it, classifying it, and categorizing it. In terms of representation, the hashtag is an important piece of the message itself. It not only describes the message, but it also forms an important piece of the message. It explains the message. So it also helps to aggregate or to collocate information on Twitter. In fact, if you click on a hashtag, it pulls up automatically every other tweet that carries the same hashtag. Hashtags also serve to classify information on Twitter, and this is what is going on with a lot of scholarship today, because what I'm doing now, we're beaming a searchlight of scholarship on current and previous research going on in order to validate my thesis. But amidst all those literature, you find lots of scholars today who are likening the classificatory role of hashtags on Twitter to named entity recognition or a classification by popularity patterns. So hashtags also serve in categorizing information. This is what is propelling a lot of studies going on in sentiment analysis today. Like when people like Joan Bolden and his group from Indiana University use Twitter modes to predict stock prices, and when people like Efron deal extensively with sentiment analysis. So we go back to this screen of hashtag clouds, and it makes more sense now when we look at the differing sizes of the bubbles that go with these hashtags, showing how prominent people's opinions were, and then the colors that we see also show where people stood on either side of the issues that propelled that election. So wherever someone found himself or herself, the colors tend to differentiate and put things in perspective better. And that's what hashtags do in aggregating, in collocating, classifying, and in categorizing information. So if we go to the next screen now, we see that this is not without problems of its own. Information representation in hashtags comes with a lot of problems, a lot of baggage. There is the case of ambivalent hashtags. For instance, when somebody uses a particular hashtag in referring to more things than one that may be happening at the same time. So this becomes a problem. There is the case of competing hashtags also. When events happen around the world, different people create different hashtags. So what happens? The hashtags that carry more buzz will tend to supersede over the ones that carry less buzz, as was the case in 2014 with the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls, created by the First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama. So we also find problems with hashtags being often too short. And because they get too short, they are not descriptive enough. And when taken in isolation, it's difficult to tell what they meant in the first place. We also find problems with hashtags crossing language barriers. Since by their nature they're supposed to be literal translations and to have specificity, when they cross boundary lines, they make things more complicated. In 2010, the case of the 33 miners trapped in Chile, the Latin world tweeted #33 mineros, meaning 33 miners. But in the English-speaking world, people added more general words like #Chile, which even though mentioned Chile, had no direct bearing to the event itself that actually happened. In the next slide here, we're seeing that on the flip side, there are also multiple problems with information retrieval on Twitter. In recent years, there has been an exponential rise in Twitter search because people want to search for real-time information. They don't want stale information anymore as in traditional web search engines, except they're doing bigger research. But in Twitter these days, people search for everything because it's fresh and they can easily get them. And because the tweets are shorter, people can go through massive amounts of tweets in a shorter time. So it's no longer a problem. We know that also the Twitter retrieval system, it tends to mimic the traditional web search engines in components and morphology. And in each of these stages, like pre-processing, indexing, and retrieval, we can have problems with hashtags. First and foremost, hashtags these days come with lots of abbreviations and emoticons. And when you introduce these to anyone who was not privy to how these hashtags were created, is not going to be able to find them at retrieval time. There are multiple problems also with ambivalent hashtags, and this is what propels, this is what is at the root of the celebrated vocabulary mismatch problem in information retrieval circles. Because the ones who create the hashtags and the ones who search for the hashtags are not using some controlled language or using the same terms, it becomes a problem for the one who is searching to find the original Twitter information. So competing hashtags also create a similar problem. When people create competing hashtags at retrieval time, it becomes difficult for the one who is searching to know which one was the right hashtag. Tweets without hashtags take things to another level altogether. When information is tweeted and there is no hashtag accompanying it, it becomes very, very difficult, in fact sometimes impossible to retrieve such information, except someone has knowledge of who the author was or some circle that the author belongs to. Now finally, most tweets have only few valid tags, and when people tweet whimsically or out of their modes of the moment, like people describing events with cute, fine, funny, and which have no direct bearing to the description of the event itself, it becomes very complicated at retrieval time. So these and many other problems are what occupy many of the scholars in the literature that I have been reviewing, and these validate my thesis, if no other thing. They validate my thesis that there are indeed unique forms of information organization going on Twitter, even if they are fraught with multiple problems. And these are some of the references I have, and I thank you for listening.